We are on site here at the Kmart on Astor Place. It's me, Ben. Andrew's here as well. What do you see, Andrew?
I'm seeing some discount socks. I'm seeing some New York Knicks cologne that's on also discount. What's going on? This place looks like it's shutting down, man.
You know, the Kmart on Astor Place has been sponsoring cookies surreptitiously for years on end.
Wow, silent backer.
Silently backing us with blue light specials. And, it's just a treasured part of New York culture is going to Indochine and then stopping by the Astor Place Kmart.
How are kids going to understand New York City day one culture when they go to Astor Place and there's no Kmart there to buy your crispy white teas?
It is one of the grimmest places in New York City. It's so surreal when you roll through there.
Well,
it was like two. It used to be 3 floors, and then it was 2. Just enormous. It doesn't even make sense. It's like a suburban big box Kmart, kind of half underground, like a bunker for savings.
yeah, and there was like in the electronics section there was like one TV and a box of those TVs, tons of Doritos. I used to go there for all my, pharmacy stuff, all my Band-Aids and Listerine and toothbrushes. Pretty cheap, man. And then I'd always get like a bag of Reese's Pieces. You know the drill. You know how it goes.
The last time I was there, I was buying like water guns and remote controlled cars for like my nephew.
Yo, it filled a niche, right?
So what's the deal? It's just gone?
It's gone. They bailed on it. Come on, man. No one's buying water guns for their nieces anymore. It's over. Real New York heads.
R.I.P. Kmart on Astor Place.
Real ones know Kmart on Astor Place.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We've got a great show for you today. We got talking about Ben Simmons' trade value, Colin Sexton, Stephen A. Smith.
Wow.
I think you should leave. Billionaires on the outer space. Flash floods. Andrew Quo, how are you doing on this muggy Wednesday afternoon?
I'm doing incredible, man. I'm muggy. It's a Wednesday afternoon. What could be better? I'm sitting here talking to you in the Kmart, clocking all the specials before they close. It's phenomenal, man.
You were boasting earlier.
Oh, wow.
Really super braggadocious about eating oat milk ice cream.
Woo! There's a spot, Ben. There's the spot alert. New spot just dropped. It's actually an old spot. On Orchard Street. It's called the Whipped. There's this soft serve oat milk ice cream that is tasty, dude. There's always a line of like Instagram people waiting to get this oat milk ice cream, and I've walked by for years. I'm like, look at those suckers. Well, I turned into one of those suckers. I decided to wait online to like, what is this all about? I got the oat milk ice cream, and I've been going back twice a week ever since.
It became public knowledge that oat milk, or specifically Oatly, who we have been advocating for a long time, we're Oatly day ones, was pretty fatty. Had a lot of calories. It's not really a dieting device or a health device as much as it is not consuming a dairy product device.
Oh, for sure. Like, Impossible Burgers are not health food. All that fake meat stuff, loaded with stuff that'll make you chubby. But, we're body positive, and I think, we like Kyle Lowry, and it's okay to have a little wagon in the summer. But oat milk ice cream is not only delicious, but you don't have to support the awful milk industry.
Wow. Does the oat milk ice cream come in interesting flavors? Because Oatly ice cream, which I've had, it's all right.
It's okay.
It's all right. It comes in like oat flavored.
Yeah.
Like Well,
Oat flavored oats.
that's not I guess it's a flavor.
Yeah. Shout out to Superiority Burger. They have fried tofu. I think, yeah, so they have chocolate. They have like a version of vanilla and I believe strawberry. I always get the mix of chocolate and vanilla. The vanilla by itself is not that good. It's called like cream or something.
Sounds like oat flavored to me.
It's a little oaty for my taste. The best flavor of ice cream when you get older, you realize it's always vanilla. Always get vanilla ice cream.
Butter pecan is another flavor for older folks.
Yeah, but that's such a deep cut.
Kids aren't having butter pecan. That's for like it's grown man strength. It's a dad's strength ice cream.
Where are you getting butter pecan? Like, are you only going to Morgenstern's or like Davies? Like,
I don't get butter pecan. I'm saying it. That's like I'm a mint chocolate chip guy.
Oh, that's a good one.
Pistachio.
Nah, you lost me.
What?
Nah, pistachio because the nuts have just like a weird texture, and I just don't enjoy it as much. Yo, remember when Baskin Robbins had the bubblegum flavor? That was wild.
I don't, but I believe you.
It was, well, when you're little, bubblegum is the most coveted candy because it lasts longer. It takes 30 or 40 years of seasoning, some life lessons to learn that chocolate and vanilla are the best things on the planet. But when I was little, that bubblegum ice cream, when that hit, man, we were trying to crunch on that frozen ass bubblegum, trying to get that working in our cheeks like some dip. It was good times, man.
There's an episode of Chef's Table about this
Thrills?
small like ice cream pastry shop in Noto, Sicily.
Oh.
It's about the chef there, and he makes this Almond Granitas. I've been to that place.
Oh, in your travels.
That's the best like iced confection I have had. It is banging, absolutely fantastic.
Wow.
Like, you can take your bubblegum ice cream and screw off.
No, I'm saying fuck the bubblegum ice cream. I've graduated to what did you say? Like pistachio,
vanilla
granita. Oh, vanilla's the best, dude. Come on.
Almond Granitas, banger.
I found myself walking through Little Italy right before the Eurocup game started this weekend on Sunday, and it was like crowded. And I saw a gelato stand, not Berghain, at 2 p.m. Not one of those weird parties you go to, but it was an actual gelato laboratoria, and there was a long line similar to the Oat Milk Ice Cream line, and I was like, look at all these suckers. And then I walked by the actual gelato. I was like, ooh, looks good. But I had to rush home to see the Eurocup. No Simbin.
You were rooting for Italy, right?
Well, all right. I love spaghetti. You're a bucatine hoarder. Like, we're all on the same page here. Biting into a corner grandma slice. There's nothing like it. But I do love Oasis. I like Blur. I like a lot of things from Europe too. So it's tough for me to figure out who to root for. So I ended up rooting for England because they're like lovable losers. No Simbin.
I felt like the argument that UK as an empire had been destructive, so you shouldn't root for them, was totally a reasonable approach.
Yeah, but Italy, I mean, everyone's got something bad. Italy this century has not been like amazing at all.
No, they've had their missteps, such as World War II.
Such as Mussolini. Some dude named Mussolini. Did I say that too fast? But that was also a while ago, and we're in the business of forgiveness. So but what happened at the Eurocup finals, no Simbin, was deeply, deeply heartbreaking. That was like one of the more tragic sporting events I've witnessed, with no horse in the race at all. Did you watch it?
I did not, but I'm familiar with what happened. Was it just the nature of the shootout? Like, naturally, that it's going to be crushing? Someone is going to be the GOAT? Isn't that always kind of how it works?
There was the lineup of people doing the shootout for both teams, and you looked at them, and we've had a long year of this, but in my mind, I was like, please don't let it be those kings who are not white. Like, can you just let them score those goals? And they did not. And it was like you felt so bad for these kids, man. Like Saka, amazing name for a soccer player, is 19 years old, and watching him crumble into dust on that stage was like truly heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think someone put up statistics showing that the Italian players had a lot more experience
They're good.
in those kind of situations, in penalty kick scenarios. The UK players had just taken very few. I played soccer like a year or two when I was a kid. I was never good at it.
Yeah.
It was not my sport.
Same.
But could you score a penalty kick? I legitimately don't know. I know that the goalie just kind of like dives one direction and they're trying to pick, and it's a big area to cover.
Yeah.
Could you get one by a goalie?
Probably not. I'm not good with my feet. Like, I'm not good at juggling soccer balls. I'm not good at like striking with intent, criminal intent. But
I just can't tell how hard it is because I'm extraordinarily ignorant. I'm just like, could I just run up to that ball and just kick it as hard as I could in a direction, and sometimes it'll just get by the guy because he's just diving, or because I'm not good at it and I could not betray, or I could not trick him into diving the wrong direction, that he would just wait for me and just go and get it. Like, I legitimately don't know how difficult it is to get a penalty kick by the goalie.
Man, remember back in the day, Adidas, when they were giving out free red stripes and the internet money was flowing in New York City? They would have soccer tournaments for downtown, not unlike the classic, the Cookies Hoops Classic. And then we'd form teams. I played for A-Life 1 year with like a bunch of Iraq guys, and we went against Supreme. Maybe I've told this story before, but Supreme got a bunch of ringers. No shock. So we showed up like hungover from the night before in the morning, putting on our like custom gear, and we were playing Supreme in round 1, who like flew out a bunch of South American ballers, and we were like, God, what a foul move. And the A-Life guys, and the guys who worked for A-Life, they weren't small dudes. They were like, they lined up okay. And for the first few minutes of the game, we were kind of like, well, we're gonna get our asses handed to us. Just like lose and eat some hamburgers or something. And then my guy Tony got so frustrated. He was like, no, fuck this. I'm gonna try to win this game. And he actually I think scored a couple goals. And your question came into, it reminded me of when you asked the question, because I don't know how hard some things in soccer are. When I played soccer in high school, I played a wing, and if I was just near a goal, it'd be like, well, why didn't you score that goal? I'm like, I'm not good at this. I'm like, but you're close to the goal, just tap it in. I'm like, is it just a position game? Is it like a game of proximity, is what I'm asking.
I do not know enough about soccer to answer that question. I don't even know if penalty kicks are hard or not. But
They look pretty hard, man.
When I view how good people are at basketball versus civilians who play basketball, and that spectrum of talent that I presume is exactly the same in soccer, which is another widely popular sport that zillions of people play all the time, and it is competitive at virtually every level. Like, that you can be a masterful fucking soccer player, and you're not on a pro team. You're not even notably good, but you can be great. Mm-hmm. I'm like, it can't just be a proximity game, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the field is level, let's say like you're all junior varsity whatevers, or you're all kind of like really good in the pros, like when people are just near the goal, this is an odd question. It can't be a proximity game, but position is everything in that sport, right? No sin bin. I don't know how to watch this damn game. When it's penalty kicks, I'm like, why isn't there just multi-ball? Just put in 2 soccer balls and just tally up goals for like 5 minutes. Walking through Little Italy, it was popping on Sunday. Just like a lot of cannolis. I love a cannoli. But summertime is back in New York City.
How are you feeling though? Because a couple months ago, we were out in these streets.
These streets.
Having some beverages and beer, getting the gay cold. I feel like we've kind of hit that midsummer
Malaise.
What are we doing now? We're still partying hard. We're still remembering how to hang out, or are we like waiting for September now?
Yo, doesn't it feel like back to school is just around the corner? We've talked about this before. I feel part of me has not snapped back into normal life at all. But sometimes when you go out there, I'm like, oh, this is like mid to late July vibes in New York City, where like a lot of rich people go away, and it has a weird ghosty kind of feel that is recognizable. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like the ruckus we're back, baby, from COVID of a month ago, right?
Well, right, yeah. It feels totally normal to me. I mean, in every way. Like, you go in regular stores now, don't wear masks. I mean, you don't have to if you're, vaccinated.
Yeah.
As you said, like July 4th, everyone left town. Mm-hmm. There was parking spots, sweet parking spots to be had. They did the fireworks. I don't know. Again, it did feel like we went from we're coming back from COVID and we're going hard to everyone had 3 hangovers and was like, all right, well, enough of that. Let's plan a trip and leave the city, and we'll come back in September, and things should hopefully be free of a third wave.
It asks a question like, were we expecting like a payoff, or were we expecting like a feeling coming out of COVID? I mean, I don't think we're out of it yet, but we got over a big hump. What were we expecting? Like, these are still the people we know, and we love and hate them equally. We have frenemies everywhere, and it's just like kind of like, I hate my boss and I'm back at work remotely. And it's just like, oh, I can't stand this friend. You remember, he kind of gaslit me about me going away on vacation. I don't want to hang out with him. And it kind of, the goodwill is hard to maintain, right?
I feel like 6 months ago, we had a discussion on this very pod, Cookies Hoops, the world's most influential basketball podcast. And we talked about how there was not going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony for life being normal. It was just going to happen. People were going to get vaccinated and go back to being normal. COVID was not going to be completely eliminated. Some people were not going to go back to being normal, but there wasn't going to be a massive celebration, a parade to say COVID is done. It was just going to gradually go back to being normal. And I think we did have those moments in New York where, yes, this is the first weekend where everybody's out and it's popping off, and like, wow, I haven't seen the city like this in a while. But like, there was no grand opening. It just went back to being what it was. And people had their own varying degrees of resuming normalcy. Mm-hmm. Some people are still like, remembering how to hang out with people again. Other people are like, well, I've been hanging out with people for the last year, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird to think about the touchstones in our year. July 4th just happened. Fireworks, right? Christmas, a big dinner, presents. Thanksgiving, another big dinner. Christmas, always at a Christmas restaurant, any French restaurant in your vicinity. But there's these things. A birthday is like blowing out the candles. But with COVID, not to say that there has to be anything, it was tough to it was trying to grab onto smoke, right? It was just like, I see the smoke, but I can't hold it, and it's going away, but I see it. And this is kind of the thing we're chasing. And it's just, and people write articles about, is FOMO over? Is FOMO just beginning? Has FOMO changed? And we're trying to articulate this feeling as a community. And it's really hard, and I don't think we'll ever be able to, nor should we have to, right?
I think we've had speaking of FOMO, we've had some concerts. There have been like house parties, rooftop parties. But part of the New York social calendar was kind of event-based. And that has not felt the same still, where it's like, oh, this is the big gallery opening, this is the party, this is the fashion week thing. There have not been those kind of organized events that had that sort of, whether it's FOMO, it's not necessarily prestige, it's just these things that were annual, like, oh, gala season, these stuff.
Yeah.
It's really just been like, okay, I guess we can do some concerts. People can hang out outside. Oh, we'll let people back into sporting events. The social calendar has really been barren now for a year and a half. And I do wonder how that's going to recover. Will people care enough to say, oh yeah, let's go back to this, lavish banquets that we were doing in 2019? My guess is yeah, but I don't know. They've been very slow to resume those specific kind of things, like the Met Ball and whatever and what have you.
Dude, I think about personnel all the time, and I feel like the people who brought us together, who threw block parties and had events and staged art shows or fashion shows, all that, like, it's hard to figure out where they are right now because one generation is kind of getting older and then another generation is kind of like trying to figure out if they can afford to live in New York City. It's just like, it's still very expensive to live here and the opportunities are coming back, but like it's more challenging than ever, I think. Yeah, it just takes like one person to be like, hey, I'm throwing a block party on Orchard Street this August and I'm going to have bands play. And it's just like, we're back, baby. And it's like, well, it was my idea to do this. And until someone does it, it won't feel like anything, right? Cookies Classic,
I think
2021.
I mean, really, that's when nature will fully heal. When the last lap is taking on Williamsburg Pizza for all the marbles.
Those are two good teams, man.
Very good teams.
Yeah.
I also think one thing that's coming into play in New York right now is that the weather has been really brutal.
Yo.
Like over the last couple weeks, it's like we're living in Miami without a beach, where it's humid as shit. The sun comes out and just burns the hell out of you, and then there's a thunderstorm. And it's every day is the same. It's sweltering, and then there's a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
I feel like everything is fungal. Just growing mold.
Fungal.
A mycelium network.
As in mushrooms.
Yeah.
Not
just
like
algae and ferns. It feels like we're in the rainforest canopy of Jurassic Park.
Oh, yeah. A side note, Jurassic Park theme, hardest song of all time. Have we accepted New York City as a bad weather city? It's a bad weather city, right? It's cloudy for most of the fall now. It's too hot in the summer. The spring and fall have weeks that are incredible. The winters are very brutal here.
I think the winters are mild, but I also come from upstate New York.
Well, I'm talking about gloom. It's just kind of like lifeless. I'm not talking about like heaps of snow. Snow is kind of wonderful, right? For a day, but
I do not have a lot of grief with last winter at all. I thought that was super breezy, and we all know how hot it gets. But this tropical shit is not great. I gotta say, don't love it. It's tough for me to get out there and do some hiking. Put my Hokas on. Too many ticks, too many bugs. The paths are muddy. It's tough out here for a Hoka wearing hiker.
Can't use your air conditioners either, man. We're not allowed to use those anymore. When it's hot, don't turn those things on.
You feel free to use them when it's cold outside.
Yeah.
When it gets hot, no AC.
Times Square needs those NASDAQ tickers. But yeah, it poses an interesting question about, obviously, climate change and energy and all these things that it takes to sustain like a happy life. And I love a sweltering New York City afternoon. Like backpack sweat. I'm back to wearing backpacks, by the way.
What kind of backpack are you wearing?
Just like I have a
Like you going Jansport, like straight back to backpack culture? You got a Jansport on. You're listening to Black Moon and Cellar Dwellers. You got a couple cans of Krylon in there.
Artifacts.
Razor blade tucked beneath your tongue.
Yo, because for years I used a very fetching Cookies Hoops tote bag that fit everything I needed. Even a Cookies Hoops duffel bag that we're bringing back soon. That worked, but I need my hands more than ever now because I have a small child. And so I've been wearing this beat-up North Face backpack, but I'm about to upgrade. I'm going to see what the backpack game has for me in 2021.
From doing a little hiking research, there are some hiking backpacks that are specifically designed to move the backpack away from being directly on your back to alleviate exactly that sweat area that you were describing.
Yeah. And wait, okay, so does it create like a little gap?
I think it creates a gap, and then maybe it's also the kind of fabric that goes there as well. So it doesn't like, press exactly against it. Maybe it's more mesh related.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the technology these days, they can do anything, dude.
Yo, people get heated about...
They can stop your back sweat.
No pun intended, but New Yorkers get heated about backpacks in subways still. Yo, if you bump into someone with your backpack, be ready to throw those hands, man.
So now that we live in a tropical New York, and we've had flash floods, I'm sure you saw the clips from uptown.
It was wild, just wild.
Like somewhere in like the 160s or something like that, and people were trying to potato sack in garbage bags through waist high subway sewage water. Yep. Just gruesome lifestyle. And then there was clips from around Dyckman in Washington Heights where people were, or maybe it was the Bronx. It was not also uptown though, and the streets had so much water in them they were just pouring into downstairs apartments and businesses like waterfalls, and people were literally in jet skis, not going fast, but like literally in jet skis on the street, like motoring around.
Yeah.
I do think that our last episode about climber doomerism, I do think we're in trouble. And there's this idea of, I believe the word is hyper objects, that are so big and bad that it's really hard to wrap our mind around. And I do think climate change falls into that. That we can sit here and be like, well, we should try to use paper straws. That's a good start, right? That'll help. We can turn our ACs off. And the hyper object is like the world is being destroyed in front of us, and like how do you wrap your head around that there are temperatures hotter than they've ever been on record. There's forest fires in the North Pole. There's droughts. Like it's just wild and very hard to kind of grasp in a real sense that the world is changing in a way that we'll never probably go back to in a recognizable fashion. So with that in mind, New York will clearly be flooded. Where are we going? Where is the Cookies Hoops hideaway going to be?
I mean, it's interesting because Florida had gone through this much quicker than anyone else because of the water levels and the population density in South Beach. And I think we talked about this last time, but like I was there for like a few hours a few years ago for Art Basel, and it was flooded. It was just like under a foot of water. And people there were like, it's normal. It'll recede, Like Florence, Italy has to like have new rules now because the flooding is getting a little too intense. And, we had a micro, I mean, this is kind of backtracking, but we had a micro experience with that phenomena you're talking about with COVID, right? Like a lot of people didn't believe it because they couldn't observe it. It didn't happen to them. And then as soon as it happened to them, they're like, oh, right. this is real. But if you are in a remote part of the world and it hadn't hit you yet, you're like, this is not really observable for me. I think climate change takes a great deal of, for lack of a better word, like empathy to understand how to be like kind for things that you cannot identify, like generations that come after you that don't exist yet. It's just like, well, we need to help these people who aren't even born yet. And it's a tough task for a lot of people who are just trying to like grill up their hot dogs, right? I remember talking to my parents about when they invented the nuclear bomb. And they were like, yo, you don't understand. We thought our lives were over. We thought it was the end of everything. And I was like, oh my God. It's like, you'll feel that in your adulthood about something. Like, it's happening. It happens to every generation, whether it be like a virus that we had, or they didn't predict climate change because back then it wasn't as accelerated. But it is almost like the bullshit idea of charity, right? Like, of course we should give each other support and help each other, but we have to look up. So like turning off your air conditioner does help for sure, and not using a plastic straw does help. But like, legislators, do your thing, like, it's tough because if there aren't sweeping changes, we will just be moving to Rochester. Is Rochester the new hotspot in New York?
I mean, RX.
Are you still
really?
down for them? Are you still jamming them?
All day.
All day. Put away those Mobb Deep tapes, man.
No, I was literally listening to RX all day today.
Good.
It's the only good music out there. That's it. It's just RX.
Yo,
right? It's the good music for you to listen to. RX Poppy, 100 Miles and Walking, banger after banger. It's the only music worth listening to. I'm sorry.
Did you listen to the new Vince Staples record?
Shout out to Vince Staples. He makes great stuff, but I listen to RX.
Well, I was gonna say, super disappointing, man. You kind of have a point. Like, what is out there? Tyler's not for me. I love Tyler the Creator, but that record's not for me. Vince Staples usually is 100% for me, but this one, I mean, I'll just wait for the next one. I've been listening to lots of drum and bass, obviously, but like, maybe it's time for some RX because they will be the new New York City in 5 years.
I feel like you haven't really embraced RX.
It's not for me. It might be. That's
so crazy to hear.
Yo, I listened to Lil B like 15 years ago, man. But I mean, my heart is open to the RX crew. It might take a second.
The thing was, they are stylistically like Lil B, and that they make a ton of songs and a ton of videos. They even rap like him at times. They shout him out a lot. Like, they are Lil B enthusiasts. But they are much, much weirder and funnier, and their references are much more topical than Lil B.
All right, yeah, man. I mean, I'm into it.
I've been here sending out songs and playlists. I've got group chat after group chat just firing RX everywhere. So like, you let me know if you need some RX material, and I will catch you up to speed on the only rap that really matters these days. And since we're going to be in Rochester in 5 or 10 years, but everyone will. The entire New York City will have to move up there.
Potted from the Kmart in Rochester.
I think RX has a real jump start on being the kings of New York.
Do you have a friend, and you're not that friend, but do you have a friend in your life that just sends you articles and videos and doesn't chat with you? So it's just like, yo, what's up? It's like, nothing much. Here's this article. What do you think about it? I'm like, oh, homework. It's like, yo, here's this video. Watch it and get back to me. I'm like, oh, homework. Do you have a friend like that? No. There's people on group chats who are sort of link guys or video guys. But it's in an ecosystem of other people chatting. So there's no expectation on an individual feedback. Yeah. I mean, Twitter has this prompt now. If you retweet an article, it's like, would you like to read it first?
I was like, no, I'm sending it out because
Yeah.
I like the headline. What the fuck is
No.
wrong with you?
I want to signal that I have read it, but I'm not going to read anything. Are you crazy?
No, it's just what they set up top is good.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks good to me. USA basketball sucks. Retweet.
Yeah, great. Put it on. Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes it takes me forever. It takes me a whole couple days to be like, okay, I'm going to read this article. And by that time, we've moved on to like Bucatini debates.
Right, naturally. The Bucatine, the Mussolini, and so forth. We're going to be in Rochester. What's up with all the billionaires going to the edge of space?
Listen, man, they just want a place where everyone is on the same playing field, where there's equality, where there's no poverty or welfare. Everyone has health care. It's just like we get to start over, and these billionaires are going to be the first ones there to usher in this new society, because on Earth, they just have no power. It is what it is.
I just love that the billionaires' favorite thing is doing shit that's existed forever, but declaring it new. Like, oh, I know that we went to space and actually put boots on the moon. That's where the phrase moon boots comes from. 60 years ago. Yeah. I know we did that. But what if I went to the edge of space? Wouldn't that be insane for, like, technology? You're like, no, we had moon boots based on the boots on the moon, man. We did this, like, 50, 60 years ago. Like, it's like ancient history. Like, before computers. Before the internet, we had literal moon boots. But we did that. You're like, oh, okay. Well, what if we put tunnels under cities that had people inside pods that moved? Like, we have subways. We have those. They are there. Yeah. Billionaires, man, they love pretending to invent shit.
It's that thing where it's like, how much does a dozen eggs cost? And billionaires are like, $15. It's like, how much does a gallon of milk cost? That's the best one, right? I'm not even sure how much a gallon of milk costs. I don't really buy milk. Is it $5?
Also, a gallon is so much milk.
Dude, it's so much milk, and I don't.
I know the last time I went through a gallon of milk.
Yeah, you can't even buy a gallon of milk at bodegas in New York. That's a lot of milk, man.
No, you can get. I think max you're getting is like a 2-liter, right?
Yeah, you can get those. I mean, sometimes when I'm cooking, I like to get those little tiny one-hitters, like those school, the school lunch one-hitters, when you're making like a nice pasta sauce.
Do they sell those though of regular milk, or is it always half and half or heavy?
For coffee, right? Like there's a bodega here that will sell little whole milk buddies, but it's not in a carton. It's in a little plastic bottle.
Yeah, a gallon of milk. I'm gonna say it costs $4.
Something like that. I wouldn't know. But like the billionaire's dilemma, right? Like I watch a footy game and I'm like, is the score going to be 10-9? And they're like, no, it might be 1-0. I'm like, I have no idea. I don't live in the world of footy. So like when billionaires are like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have an automated cashier in my establishment. It's like, oh yeah, we have those. It's like, oh, we don't go to supermarkets anymore, you know? So I get it. I mean, billionaires are the most fun to dunk on. And Richard Branson, who went out into space, is kind of like the most fun to dunk on billionaire because he's kind of wacky. But does anyone care about outer space anymore? We barely care about UFOs.
I don't even understand the fascination.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're going to go up there. And I mean, is there a fascination within that reptile billionaire brain that they will leave this rotting husk of a planet behind and go live in like a cool little palace on Mars or something? I mean, is that, or is it just ego that like, I get to leave Earth? Fuck off, Earth.
Well, it's strange. Like when I see Richard Branson going to space, I'm like, dude, you're Obi Toppin's age, and you only have like a couple hours left on your life. Respect to Richard Branson and Obi Toppin. You're going to outer space to like create more wealth. It's just like, well, I'm going to start a colony there. I'm going to be like the pipeline to this new society. And I'm like, yo, Richard Branson, just watch a basketball game and chill out, man. I don't know.
Just as a brief callback to what we were saying before, I just looked up the price of a gallon of milk
It's
in
$5.
New York City, $4.
Oh, that's good. Oh, we're in touch, man.
I'm a man of the people, King.
But is there like organic milk?
Yeah, that's
like
more,
$10
but like
bucks?
that's for billionaires.
Listen,
That's what they're talking about.
we're
That
gonna make
billionaire milk.
but organic, and we're gonna
You're-
sell
I
it
mean-
for $10.
Oat milk is like $6.
Oat milk is pricey, man. We go through a lot of oat milk up in here.
And that's a half gallon, right?
Yeah, you can get it for cheap. You know what always makes me feel terrible? It's when I
Oat
like
milk, you can get it for cheap part two.
when I like splurge on a carton of oat milk. I'm like, yes, okay, $6. I'm gonna do this because I enjoy oat milk. And then you see a display of like thousands of bottles of or hundreds of cartons of oat milk for like $3. I'm like, is my life worth nothing? Do you know, like when you
But
walk
oat milk
into
lasts a
Costco-
long enough time that you can just let it like sit there and not like churn through it. No pun intended.
Yeah.
And,
No, it lasts.
You know, like
forever.
it lasts you for like a couple weeks. I mean, me personally, because I only really use it in coffee and like maybe a smoothie or something.
I put it in oatmeal, so that's carb on carb crime.
Are you shitting me? You go oat on oat?
Yeah, I mean, usually when I was little, I used to put milk in oatmeal, but now that there's oat milk, why would I not do that?
So that's
Carb on
oat
carb.
flavored.
It's oat flavored oats. It's nice, man. It's as if they were made to go together. It's pretty cool. Maybe I should.
Is there a way to integrate? I don't know, like maybe
Ice cream?
oat bread or another oat product in there. Like, could you get
A la mode?
three-way on the oats?
Yeah, a la mode, man. Some oat milk ice cream. Just drop it on there, man. Yeah, just Paul Pierce that shit. Berghain it.
Over in the laboratory, we've got a three-way oat thing going on.
Who oated on my oats? Did someone just oat me? Yeah, how many oats can you get into one bite? Pff, tons.
Lots of oats.
Yeah,
Should we talk about some basketball?
let's do it.
Let's see. So we've got Ben Simmons trade talk. We gotta discuss that. You know, like Ben Simmons. That's a hero of the pod. Well, I want to hear from you first. What is your take on reports that the Sixers have made Ben Simmons available, and there is, I believe the word was robust, interest in trading for the Sixers' three-time All-Star, future Hall of Fame Defensive Player of the Year candidate?
I believe half of it. I believe all 28 NBA teams and one relegated team have made that call because he's amazing. Like you said, future Hall of Famer. 3 All-Star appearances in 4 years. He came out the gate as a rookie as an amazing player. And he has not improved. He's just still amazing. But I halfway believe that he is available and they're taking offers. It's sort of like last year when Dolan was like, of course the Knicks are for sale. And everyone's like, oh my God, finally Dolan's ready to sell the Knicks. He's like, well, yeah, for like $25 billion, do you have it? It's like, yeah, make me an offer. Until I see an offer I like, I'll be keeping the Knicks. And I don't think Morey is opposed to trading Ben Simmons, but this is just like lip service, right?
It's hard to say because the response from Sixers faithful and the media who are clamoring for a trade, it's a very punitive angle. This guy didn't dunk the ball when we think he should have. Get him out of here. This guy didn't score in the fourth quarter. Get him out of here. This guy shot poorly from the line over a 13-game span. Get him out of here. He should not be on this team. Deal him off and get someone who's better. That's just trying to punish him for playing poorly in games that you cared about and blaming someone for those losses to the Atlanta Hawks, who they should have beaten with one hand tied behind their back. From what we know about Daryl Morey, this is not how he has typically operated. You know, he makes comments all the time about drawing narrative conclusions from small sample sizes in his dorky way. That like, oh, here we go. A guy misses a shot and now he's a loser. He operates distinctly in opposition to this idea of Simmons played poorly, ship his ass out of here. So this doesn't strike me as typical behavior by him. And with that in mind, I think we have to view Ben Simmons as not just kind of an inert object waiting to learn his fate here, but someone who is represented by Clutch Sports Group and someone who is a 3-time All-Star and the best defensive player in the league and a future Hall of Famer and a guy with a max contract who is also LeBron's buddy and represented by the most powerful sports agency in the league right now. So, to me, this is how Clutch earns their money. They don't get their reputation by signing Ben Simmons to an extension that the Cookies Hoop Sports Group could have negotiated. They earn their keep in moments like this when they have a player who is underused by his team, who is being vilified, who has had comments by his coach and by teammates. The media's mad at him. He is in a position where he needs Clutch to come in and say, this is our client. We don't give a fuck if he missed free throws. We don't give a fuck if he should have scored more in the fourth. We represent him, and we want what's best for him. And this is where I think Clutch comes in and says, hey, we need you to explore trade options. Ben's not happy here. Like, look at this situation. We don't like it. He doesn't like it. We're not going to come here and ask for a trade specifically, publicly, maybe out of sensitivity to the Anthony Davis scenario that did not look good for Clutch. And also, if you're Daryl Morey, you don't want them to publicly say that because that could reduce your leverage. But to me, that's what this looks like. I could not tell you if Daryl Morey is trying to trade Ben Simmons, if he wants to trade Ben Simmons, if he doesn't want to trade Ben Simmons, if he's being pressured to trade Ben Simmons. I don't know. I don't know any details about this situation. I'm just saying, based on the parties involved, this looks to me like a case where Clutch said, we would like you to explore trade opportunities. That's what it looks like to me. And I think Morey is pragmatic. If there's a deal that he thinks continues to make the Sixers a contender, if it makes them better, if that exists, I don't know if it does. I think he would make that move as like a palate cleanser for everyone involved. But I would be surprised if he made a trade that made the Sixers worse. Because why would you do that? Unless, of course, he really feels like Clutch has a gun to his head or something.
Yeah, you tweeted something out that got Grill Masters tongs in a ruffle. Is that the right phrase? They got their aprons kind of too tight.
Got their aprons tangled.
Yeah, and I agree with that tweet in that I'm paraphrasing, but if Simmons is indeed moved, or the culture surrounding a Simmons trade is like, it's not about basketball at this point. Let's stop pretending that it's making the team better, because there's no deal out there that makes this team better by dealing Ben Simmons. It's about something else, and that something else is really annoying because you want to win a championship with. I'm tired of hearing Joel Embiid's prime, because it's true. You want to use his prime window. This is Ben Simmons' prime window, man. Like, win a championship with him. So I don't see any deal out there that has been talked about that helps the Sixers. Lillard's an awesome offensive player. I don't think that helps the Sixers currently. He's awesome. No disrespect to Lillard.
I think you could conceivably come up with a deal like Paul George for Ben Simmons.
I kind of like that too, because I love Paul George, but like, I'd still rather have Ben Simmons. He's 25 and under contract, right? Like,
I would too. I think Paul George is a really talented player. He's great. I'm a big fan. He is certainly a better scorer than Simmons, but he's
awesome.
And he's a really good defender. He's a great player.
Yeah.
But when people talk about the Ben and Joe fit, I feel like I'm listening to people from a parallel universe. their fit is like fantastic together. You have the best perimeter defender. You have one of the best interior defenders, top 3 in the league. You have a guy who is incredibly good at pushing tempo and creating baskets for teammates. And then you have a guy who is one of the leading half-court scorers in the league. The idea that they don't, quote, fit because Ben can't shoot is just utterly nonsensical. Like, I mean, we know this. Joel Embiid played with him and was an MVP candidate. Like, if he was being hamstrung by Ben Simmons' presence, we would know. Yeah. And he isn't. He definitely isn't. He was an MVP candidate. He had his best scoring season ever. Like, would he have scored 3 more points a game and been more efficient without Simmons? No. Like, no.
My favorite thing in the world is when people are like, well, there's no evidence of this thing, therefore it must be true. It's sort of like when we heard that people thought Democrats were drinking blood of babies in pizza restaurant basements. I was like, tell me more. And as soon as I heard it a couple of times, I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. Like that'll just be in some compartment of my brain that I know about. Sort of the same way Sixers sufferers talk about fits with Ben Simmons.
It's just fit. Like,
I'm just done with it.
What are you fucking talking about? You don't know what you are talking about. This idea of fit, like it's nonsensical. They were in the 98th percentile when the two were on the court this season in the entire NBA. They were in the 99th percentile in the playoffs. Like, yes, I get it. If Simmons was a good shooter, it would be an even better fit because he could move somewhere. Yes, but it doesn't affect Embiid. It doesn't affect the half-court offense. When everyone's like, they're playing 4-on-5, you get that Simmons doesn't hurt the spacing when he stands there because you can't leave him. They were playing 4-on-4.
Yeah.
They weren't playing 4-on-5 because no one ever leaves him by the basket. They were playing 4-on-4. Yeah. And now, I'm with you. Simmons should have been more involved in the half-court offense. I was only screaming and crying like an infant about it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over. Screeching that they needed to give him the ball more in the half court, give him more opportunities to go ISO, to attack from the perimeter all day. I agree. But the idea that the guy who had 13 assists in Game 7 was the problem, it's fucking absurd, man. It's absurd.
This is a cultural sports discussion, right? Like, we're not talking about basketball anymore. And I love this stuff. I eat it up. Sixers stuff is exhausting because it feels circular. And
it literally is people refusing to acknowledge that they were wrong about Simmons needing to shoot. He doesn't need to shoot. It's okay. Yeah. Not every player on the court does. And that obsession with his shooting, and that it is a moral issue with him, that he won't learn, he won't try, he doesn't care. It is exhausting.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, the challenge as a fan has become just like kind of ignoring these people who just scream at you on Twitter. Because, like, when, let's say, there's a possibility of a Simmons trade on the table, it's like, oh, okay, we can talk about this, and people are just screaming about fit and all this, like, all these like songs that they have stuck in their head. The challenge is just ignore them so you can have a discussion about, like, well, does Lillard make the team better? Like, we can talk about that. That's fun, right? I don't believe he does, but that's a cool conversation to have over and beer. Is there a trade out there that Morey does that could make the Sixers better? I love that. But to hear all this noise about, like, him not wanting to get better and him, like, having a new girlfriend, I don't care. Is it funny? Tell me if it's funny.
It's just juvenile nonsense.
It's children's stuff.
It's boomer shit, man. Like, get out of here.
It's bubblegum ice cream.
Here's my thing. If the Sixers can make a trade that keeps the team competitive and puts Simmons in a situation where he will be the star of the show, where he can flourish, I'm cool with that. I want to see him and Joe win together in Philly. But I also don't want to see him vilified and stifled by Doc Rivers and
he's gonna have
tortured by the media and tortured by fans when he is this good of a player. I think he's great. Like, I want the Sixers to win. I root for them. but I don't have loyalty to the Sixers like I have an emotional attachment to the players. I care about Joe and I care about Ben. I cared about Covington and Jeremy Grant and
Furkan. You're a Furkan.
Furkan Day One. I care about Dario. I care about the guy Tyrese Maxey, guys who B-ball Paul Nerlens. I care about the guys who came up with a team. The organization doesn't come first. I don't give a fuck about the owners or like the GM or the coach. Like I might.
Flags.
I might if I get an attachment to them. I cared about Sam Hinkie and I cared about Brett Brown. It's like, where do your emotions go? It is certainly not to the Sixers uniform, as far as I'm concerned. It's to the people who are around that you develop an attachment to. So, like, I think Ben Simmons deserves to go somewhere where he can thrive. If Philly will not allow for that, then by all means, trade him somewhere where he can be the top 5 player that I believe he is.
Yeah.
And I know that most people don't agree with that. Most people scoff at that. But that's my belief, that he has the potential to be a top 5 player in the league. And we know he has done it for a 40-game stretch within like the last calendar year and change. And I'd like to go see if he can do it. I'd like to know whether that's possible. And if he's going to sit here with Doc Rivers and ruin his life wasting away in the dunker spot because Doc Rivers has like a prehistoric offense, then like set him free. Mm-hmm. That's where I'm at.
And it's interesting to hear the information that we're getting. And allegedly the asking price is an all-star caliber player, and I went through and I'm like, oh, this is just posturing because these players are unbelievable. Like, you're not gonna get like, I know LeBron James is, you're not gonna get an all-star player for Ben Simmons. Like, these guys are all like, Jokic is set, like Giannis is set. You don't want Middleton, like all this stuff, and I'm like, this is kind of unrealistic, and you don't want draft picks because if you're trying to win now. So this is a really easy thing, in my opinion, and I believe sometimes as sports fans we make things too hard. Your first or second best player is not your issue, ever, when you're a good team. Ben Simmons is not the Sixers' problem. Their problems, as we've talked about relentlessly, is like they're fixable. Get a stretch, get another green light shooter, see what Tobias's value is out there, play Matisse Thybulle, and you're kind of right back at the number 1 seed, right?
I mean, to me, it's just all Doc.
Yeah.
It's all Doc. It's all Doc. There's nothing else. The roster is totally fine. This was a championship team. They have 2 players who draw double teams. There aren't really any other teams who have that kind of talent except for, like, Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. Philly has 2 of those guys that draw that kind of attention, that you can put them on the court with players who are really limited and make those guys valuable. That is a very unique skill. There's not many dudes who can do it, and they have 2 of them. Yeah. And they have, again, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league and one of the best interior defenders in the league. Like, they were a championship team that Doc Rivers spiked in the toilet. It was one of the worst coaching jobs I've seen in recent memory. Everything was dumb. His lack of playing for Thybulle was dumb. Lack of playing time for Thybulle was dumb. Yeah. His use of Simmons in the half court was dumb. His reliance on Tobias was dumb. His use of Dwight Howard as the sole backup center was fucking dumb. Like, it was a terrible, terrible tour de force of awful coaching. Yeah, and I fucking like Doc. Yeah. I like Doc. He seems great. He did one of the most unbelievably, inexplicably terrible jobs coaching a team that I've seen in quite some time.
Yeah, and let's talk about the moment, right? Because understood, like, we've on this pod, we've broken down.
Yes, I know.
Doc, we've even blogged about it. But, like, let's talk about the moment and where the Sixers are currently, because a lot of fan bases don't want Ben Simmons on their team, which is so interesting, right? Like, moronic Knicks fans that I see in Dime Square sometimes are just like, I don't want Ben Simmons on the Knicks. I'm like, dude, there's no package the Knicks have to offer that would even come close to
literally none. Literally none.
The Knicks don't have enough. You can give the whole team away for Ben Simmons, and Morey's just like, no, thank you. So, like,
we'll give you Topman and RJ and Randall. Like, no.
That's not enough. This is not enough. IQ, Mitch Robinson, I'm like, still not enough. And we're seeing the true value of Ben Simmons kind of unfold in a little way, right? Because like CJ McCollum was mentioned a lot a month ago. Now it's like we understand like he's not going to get it done. He's not an all-star. And Ben Simmons is a 3-time all-star. And Damian Lillard might be on the table, but like I just don't think Morey falls for that. And if Portland can get Ben Simmons, they'd be psyched, I think.
I think I listened to what your boy Dan Lebertard, and
Truth.
He made the point that Simmons is not going to be easy to trade because if you're Portland, if you can get Lillard and Simmons together, you're fucking rocking.
Yeah, dude.
But Simmons and McCollum doesn't get you closer to winning a chip.
No,
Like
but I like that.
Teams who have a star are trying to get multiple stars. No one's trying to just swap stars out.
No, yeah, like
including the Sixers.
no, like get Lillard to play with Simmons in Philly. That's the object of the game, right? Like
Of course, that's
don't
what I
trade him
mean.
for Harden. Add Harden.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I'm totally at peace with whatever happens to him. I think Simmons is a fantastic player that was used in a cretinous manner this year. It was incredibly obvious. It was never fixed, and I think that all goes back to Doc. I don't know if it was suggested to him that the way that they started playing offensively post All-Star break was a disaster, but Cookies Hoops blogged about it.
Yeah.
Like, their offensive rating with the starting unit went down 10 points per 100 possessions in the second half, specifically because they started using Ben Simmons poorly. So if they're going to continue to do that next season,
They're done.
well, then deal his ass. Send him off somewhere. Go get D'Angelo Russell. Go get Malcolm fucking Brogdon. And let's not even pretend those teams are title contenders. Oh, right. Malcolm Brogdon, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. Yeah, that team is beating the Nets. Good luck.
I heard De'Aaron Fox in a Simmons deal. I'm like, that puts you in purgatory. That ends the run.
Oh, yeah, Fox, Harris, and Embiid. Yeah, that's a title team. Yeah, sure. Totally.
But like, it just ends the whole run. And,
It's done.
And you know, again, my favorite Clydism is the Knicks don't know how to handle prosperity. Thankfully, Morey does know how to handle prosperity. So I don't think he's going to make a move that hurts the team. If he does make a move, it might be a domino for another move and another move. And
as I said, my main thing is that we don't necessarily know the pressure that Clutch is exerting here.
True.
If Ben Simmons is like, you know what, I want the fuck out of here, I'm not going to go publicly say it because, like, I've always been that kind of player who generally says the right thing.
Always.
You know, that's my brand. That,
Yeah.
like,
He's not giving
he's
you
incredibly boring.
Yeah.
Maybe he's like, look, I don't want to be here. I don't want to play with Joe anymore. I don't want to be coached by Doc anymore. I sacrificed and got thrown under the bus. I don't like the media. I don't like the fans. Fuck this place. I'm sick of it. You know what? They want me gone. I'd like to be gone.
Yeah.
We don't know. If he's saying that, and Clutch is saying that, and Rich Paul is saying that, and that's what Clutch is telling Morey, that we want him moved. And if you don't move him, that's going to affect the way that we deal with you in the future. And this is also because you guys didn't hire Tyrone Lue because he was with our organization. Now it's the get back.
Yeah. God.
So again, we just don't know. I'm making all this up. This isn't based on anything factual. But also, we just don't know what the dynamics are within Sixers ownership, within how Morey views the situation, how Simmons views the situation, how Clutch views the situation. There's a lot of moving parts here.
Totally. God, can you imagine on
How
the
people
LA
even
teams?
view Doc?
Yeah,
like
totally. It's just palace intrigue stuff. Like we'll never know unless there's a tell-all book like the one that came out about the Nets.
Right,
or
and
is
if he
coming out.
and if he does get traded, the main takeaway will be that he was dealt because he missed free throws.
The Sixers fans don't want this, man. It's sort of like a kid who wants that bubblegum ice cream. I'm like, you don't really want this. Okay, I'll get it for you, but you're gonna be mad about this. And I just believe, like, Philly fans don't want to deal a 3-time All-Star who's 25. Like, build around him. Figure out a way to make him better. Like, whatever your life's view is, like, no player is perfect unless you're LeBron James. Like, build around him, man. Help him. Look at DeAndre Ayton. He was just a regular guy, and they built around him, and now we're talking about him like as good as some of the all-time great centers. Like, no, they just gave him an opportunity to succeed.
I think there's a segment of the Sixers fan base that is drawn towards apocalypse.
For sure. Yeah.
That they want Simmons gone, then they'll want Embiid gone, then they'll want to blow it up, then they'll want the coach gone. Like, they just crave annihilation. They aren't actually concerned about winning games, putting together a championship contender, knowing that it takes years to get there, that there are pitfalls in the way. Yeah. This idea that, like, go all in right now, blah, blah, blah. That's not how this works. Yeah. You know, the Bucks made mistakes. The Bucks figured things out. They might lose this year, but they also might win a chip.
Yeah, they could. They look like they could.
They've had Middleton and Giannis together for a really long time. They've gradually put this together. And, if you had blown this up 4 years ago, you wouldn't be here. Yeah. It takes some time to sort things out. Sometimes you're Golden State and everything aligns perfectly and you just, whoa, we're champions now. And maybe that'll happen for Phoenix. Hey, we had the talent curve, or the learning curve for our young guys, dovetailed with bringing in Chris Paul, and like we had a lineup and roster that made a lot of sense, and guys that really worked together. We got sort of fortunate due to the way that players got injured, and maybe we're just going to get a chip. Like, bada bing, it might work. But you got to be patient. When you have two great players, this sense of frantic, like, anger and wanting to tear everything down just doesn't make sense to me. Like, push everything in. I agree that there should be urgency to win, but they were set up to win this year. They had a roster that was capable of winning a title. They were the number 1 seed. They had the 99th percentile with their starting unit in the playoffs. Like, sorry guys, this was a championship team and they didn't win. You're allowed to run it back and try again.
There's this vibe on Twitter that some people have taken. It's evolved, right? Where it's like, listen, I love Ben Simmons as much as anybody, but I can finally admit that he is a problem. I can do it. I'm not mad at him, but he's got to go. And I'm like, well, you're close, in my opinion. Take a step back and admit that, like, to your point, like, you might be seeking misery here, because there is a kind of fan that I definitely used to be, that, like, found their identity through losing. And, obviously my team is not even in the NBA. And for years I was just like, oh my God, another year of suffering. I have value because I sit through this suffering. Insanity taught me that that's all bullshit. Joy is joy, and joy is worth seeking, especially pre-sale on cookieshoops.com, The Joy of Basketball, October 19th. But seeking out joy is a worthwhile endeavor as a fan, because you might not ever get it, and I don't think I'll ever see a Knicks championship in my lifetime. But, like, I've become like a happier fan because I wanted to be a happier fan, when I'm just like, there's good things and there's bad things, but seeing things for what they are and not for what I think they mean to me personally is freedom. And man, I have fun watching Knicks games, win or lose, And I'm disappointed when they lose. I'm not heartless, but, like, I just wish, like, I don't know. Do I give a fuck? I just wish Sixers fans enjoy these two players, because they don't come along ever for any franchise.
That's where I'm at. Yeah. You have the best young duo in the NBA. The numbers back up that they are great together. The idea that you would trade one of them and improve is just tough. That's a challenge. And Morey is good at his job. Maybe he'll pull it off. Yeah. That is a challenge to say 98th percentile when these guys are on the court, 99th in the playoffs, despite them losing a series. and you're going to get better, and you were the 1 seed, best of luck.
Yeah.
Speaking about teams that don't exist, as you just mentioned, are you ready?
Should I light my candle?
Light your candle. It's time to get sexy. And by sexy, I mean Colin Sexton.
What?
Sextown, USA.
What?
The Garden, MSG.
Wow.
The Mecca.
So you're talking about a backcourt with the brains and the wagon. You have Sexton and IQ. Wow, this is a dream come true, man.
That is the perfect mate.
It's like as if the Cleveland Cavaliers have no use for a star. They're like, we have a star on our hands, but we're willing to trade him.
We're too good.
Yeah, we're too set up to retain this good player. Do you want him for another good player?
So okay, you're a Knicks fan here,
Yes.
and you are, of course, raising the red flags here about acquiring Colin Sexton.
Don't
if
do
the
it.
Cavs don't want him. So, are you opposed to say the Knicks giving up like, I don't know, a future first?
Like a nothing trade?
Like a future first, maybe protected 1 through 10. Like, I don't think you're getting something or giving up something of impressive value for Colin Sexton. He averaged 24 a game. He was efficient. He can score in the NBA. He's a quality offensive player, specifically as a scorer. Can't defend. He doesn't pass much. Kind of a ball hog. He's a prom king, but he can get some buckets.
Respect to the sex dog, man. He's an NBA player. He's going to have a long-ass career.
He averaged 24 last year.
Yeah,
he scored a lot of fucking points.
Jordan Clarkson stuff. Great. Every team can use him, right? He's looking at like a big money contract coming up, man. I do not want him. If you just added him for nothing to the Knicks, I wouldn't want him because it puts us farther away from winning a championship. I don't want respectability. I want a chip. And I think Sexton is going to cost money, and he's going to be a type of player that you're going to have to build around. And the Knicks hit on IQ in the draft, and he's not that dissimilar, right? Even more interesting than Sexton.
I mean, Sexton is...
He's good. Whatever.
He's a very, very good scorer.
Yeah, he's useful. He's going to have a lot of suitors.
But this is where my opinion on scarcity, and this is clearly related to the Ben Simmons discussion, versus lack of scarcity. Again, I'm not returning to the Simmons convo, but a guy who is a top 10 distributor and the best defensive player in the league is wildly scarce. A guy like Colin
limited edition
Sexton,
shoes are worth a lot of money, man.
a guy like Colin Sexton,
Yeah.
He's not a pair of Jeff Staple pigeons.
Didn't someone buy a pair of those for like $1 million or something?
Probably like PJ Tucker.
The Tuck God. Okay, go on.
But Colin Sexton as an archetype is the prevailing model throughout the entire NBA right now. It's combo guard, can dribble, can shoot, can pass a little bit. They are absolutely fucking everywhere. And when we talk about guys like Colin Sexton, when we say, well, he improved a lot. He improved a lot. He became good. He's a rising young star. No doubt, his numbers are better. He did get better. He's young. He did get better. But you look around the league, and they're everywhere. Donovan Mitchell got better. Jaylen Brown got better. Tobias Harris got better. R.J. Barrett got better. Like, they all got better.
Yes, it's the era of scoring.
It's exactly. They all got better. And I think it's tough to separate scoring inflation and efficiency inflation from these guys themselves. For example, true shooting percentage went up over the last year or two from a league average of 56 to 57. So if that's like the high water lifting all ships, some of that improvement from some of these players is just attributable to an overall rising in the league. One interesting part of this that I had not even paid attention to is that a huge spike in scoring efficiency is due to perimeter players
raking the ball, foul shot, touch fouls.
It's foul. Well, I don't think it's specifically touch fouls. It's just foul shots. It's that perimeter players are now dominating the ball and scoring more. Big guys are basically stretch fours and like lob catching fives. Yeah. So you don't have a poor shooter like Shaq or Dwight Howard or Tim Duncan, guys who are shooting in the 50s, 60s, going to the line constantly. The guys who get to the line a ton are dudes like James Harden and guys like Trae Young.
Damian
Lillard, guys who shoot 85, 90%.
Yeah.
So foul shooting percentage league-wide has soared to being more valuable than ever before. And that's actually pushed efficiency up league-wide. And I haven't even heard anybody talk about this.
Yeah.
Free throw shooting is a real key. In terms of actual field goal percentage, and this is not accounting for twos and threes being worth differently, it's actually the exact same as it was in the early 90s, which is wild.
Yeah.
Like the players are missing just as many shots from the floor as they were in that era. They're just missing them from different locations.
Interesting. Yeah, man. I think
that's the kind of knowledge you get here. The Joy of Basketball, October 19th. I don't know if that's in the book, but you got it here. Might be in the book. Might be.
Next to the Tony Braxton chapter.
Joy of Basketball 2. Coming out in a couple of years. That
October 19th, 2022.
That thing about free throws will be in there.
But, nerds have been screaming from the hilltops that threes are definitely more valuable than long twos, but the value truly is in free throws. And if getting to the line is the most valuable thing you can do in a basketball game. So that's why, when Ben Simmons gives up that dunk, I'm like, well, he could have dunked it, but generating 2 foul shots from Matisse Thybulle is like a good result. It wins you basketball games.
I mean, look, if he dunks that ball, that's a better play. If he goes up and gets a 3-point play, that's even better. Yeah. But 2 foul shots was not the difference between them losing that game. Every single one of Joel Embiid's 8 turnovers was significantly worse because they didn't get a point from them. Every one of Tobias Harris's 16 bricks was more of a harmful play because, again, they didn't at least get a point from it and foul shots from it and were able to get back on defense. So that's the kind of anecdotal shit that just drives me bonkers. But the point that I was saying before is this season, players league-wide shot almost 78% from the foul line. And you go back a few years ago, it's like, 76.7, 77. Well, 77, that was close. But this is a modern thing. You go back to like the mid-90s, it was 73%, 73%, 75%, 75%. 78% this year. It's the highest in history.
And in relation to the Knicks situation...
And last year was the second highest in history.
Yeah. In relation to what's happening with the Knicks this week and all this talk about Colin Sexton, the Knicks are not in the NBA, but they're in a very tenuous position. I think they have a lot of moves, and what they do next will be really important. And because they're such like a blank slate, kind of. And beware, I think we should beware of the Colin Sextons and even the Damian Lillards of the world, because Lillard's awesome. He's an all-star, but he's going to cost you as much as it took to get Paul George. And make sure you're getting something back that will immediately help you, because while Dame Lillard is the best version of what we're talking about and instantly valuable to every team, do you just want to sign a green light guy for nothing and then keep all your assets? You can.
Here's a good point, right? If you don't have to give up much for Colin Sexton, what is the real difference between him and Dame? We know Dame is better. Obviously, he's better. Obviously, he's better. Dame is, a basketball force, and that's also because he is a good passer.
Yeah, Dame is awesome. Dame is awesome.
I'm not hating on Dame. I'm not even really. I'm comparing him to Colin Sexton in what do you have to give up to get Colin Sexton? It might be next to nothing. It might be one protected first rounder down the line.
Kevin Knox or something.
Right. It might be nothing. And, he put up 24 a game. His efficiency was above average. Wasn't great. It was a tick above average.
And the Knicks got bounced because they couldn't score. So getting a scorer is the right idea, right?
And yes, and Sexton is 22. He's not an elite scorer like Dame Lillard. He's not incredibly efficient like Dame Lillard. He's not a great passer like Dame Lillard. He's not Dame Lillard. That's not the point.
He's just a buckets guy. He's Jamal Crawford, who I love.
But the point is, if you're the Knicks, does it make more sense to try to put everything you can possibly put together to get a Dame Lillard, which may not even be enough? Or do you just say,
close.
Randall, some of our young guys,
Give
Sexton,
IQ the green light. Yeah.
Does Sexton improve us enough?
No. And the Knicks have not made this move in almost more than half a decade. And this is a classic. Well, he should be older. He should be on his second contract. But this is a classic Dolan scenario.
I was about to say he just turned. He was 22 this season, and he'll be 23 early next.
Cleveland doesn't want to give him the big contract, which is telling but not telling. We never know. He may say no one ever turns down that contract, but he may say I don't like it here. I don't like Gilbert. So we don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but the Knicks will have to pay him, and because people who get buckets eventually get paid, but he's not what a rebuilding team like the Knicks need. It kind of puts more cement in your shoe a little bit. The Knicks have him in Emmanuel Quickly. The Knicks should pour all their resources into putting pressure on the Pelicans, I think, to re-sign Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, that would be the move that I would make. I don't know if they're planning on offering $25 million for Lonzo.
Do it. Just do it.
I mean, that said, they could offer 25 for Lonzo and, hold the Pelicans' feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And say, you're going to have to overpay him. You could make that an odious contract.
Yep.
Where you say, look, there's an opt-out after 2 years. There's a trade kicker. You can make it suck. You might not even have to have that opt-out after 2. But, again, you could make it as toxic a contract as possible in order to get the Pelicans to say, we don't even want him that much, let alone to pay him. And then there's all this other bullshit attached to it. Get out of here. And
the
that's
Knicks have cap space, and this is what cap space is for, right?
So you could do that and then also go and get Colin Sexton because he doesn't make any money.
Yeah. Well, he will. I think he's up for a deal, right?
After next year.
Okay, so a year, a rental.
So trading, well, you could figure out what to do with him, but he gets paid $6 million next year. So that's the advantage of trading for him now, is that you could have Lonzo and Randall as your guys who make real money. You could figure out what to do with Randall. You could bring in Sexton. You could even sign someone else.
Well, it has to be Nerlens, right? They need to pay Nerlens Noel. We can't let him walk to the dozen teams that want him now. Great
Dallas
job,
is
Knicks.
we want you back. I'm like,
Knicks are we'll give this guy a shot and create, market value for him, and then have to pay him. Why didn't they just sign him to a 3-year deal? Maybe he said no, right? But
that could have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's smart of him to say no because we all know he's a baller and he's about to get paid. And the Knicks were a perfect situation to showcase what he can do.
I don't know what Nerlens gets a year. I mean, center's a tough position these days. We see teams like Phoenix going small a lot. We see teams like the Clippers going small a lot.
Yeah, man.
The Bucks will put Giannis at center, who isn't really one.
I mean, yeah. The Sixers
teams are very comfortable going small. I don't know what the market for Nerlens is out there, but we know he's an excellent defensive player.
Would you give him 15?
No, I think that centers just are.
Oh, he's such
fairly,
a good center, man.
He is really good, but centers are just easy to find.
I know, but not like him.
No, he is uniquely disruptive. He is one of the most disruptive centers in NBA history. That's not.
There's half a dozen of these guys, right?
Hyperbolic. He is that disruptive.
They're weird, off-white, rare-ass shoes, man. It's hard. If you let Nerlens walk, okay, we'll get another Nerlens. I'm like, where?
Well, that's true. There isn't another one of those guys out there.
Yeah. And the reason the Knicks look so bad against the Hawks, I think the Hawks still probably beat them, but Nerlens wasn't right, and the whole thing crumbled.
But you also have Mitchell. You got to figure out what to do with him.
Oh, does this bore you? Does Mitchell Robinson?
I just wanted to talk about the NBA.
Portland? Are we talking about the Trailblazers here? Mitchell Robinson is a beast.
What?
So the Knicks are at a crossroads a little bit, right? They see kind of they see the ship in the distance closer than ever, and they're gonna have to decide what they want to do with Mitchell and Kevin Knox. I'm psyched they held on to Kevin Knox and Frank Ntilikina, but like their time is gonna be up soon, and I want them to keep them. I'm kind of like a conservative when it comes to trades because you never get good value in a trade, man. You get value in draft picks and keeping them, but the Knicks have a lot of decisions to make. I think not signing. Extending Randall is smart now. Just see how his next year plays out.
Oh, they should absolutely not extend him.
Yeah, just see how it plays out and re-sign him to the max and see if he takes it. And if he walks back to LA, like, thank you, Randall. He was awesome. He gave us everything.
And I wouldn't even try to max him next year. No one's going to max him.
You don't think so? If he has the same season he did last year?
I just don't know what team that would be.
The Knicks. Yeah, well, I don't know. Cleveland. There's some dumb teams out there. Orlando. You never know, man.
Maybe so. I mean, there could be candidates. I'm just saying I don't know that someone's going to say
smart teams won't
max that man out.
Yeah.
But looking at their salary sheet right now, Randall makes 19, which is about half as much as a lot of all-stars make at this point.
Yeah.
No one else makes over 10. Because so many of those guys are veterans on bullshit contracts, or the Nerlens, the Burks, the Roses, those kind of players, and then a lot of them are young guys who are on the rookie scale, which is your Barrett and your Toppin and your Knox. So they don't have a lot of money that's guaranteed. I mean, their fourth highest paid player next season is Joakim Noah.
I love him. Yeah.
Literally their fourth highest paid player. So to me, I'm like, you could go out there and go get Lonzo if you really like him.
Oh, they should. Yeah.
You could go sign Sexton. You could trade for Sexton. You could go find another free agent and spend $25 million on him too. Like, you actually do have the ability to bring in a bunch of young talent with the cap space that you have. I don't know if that will make you a contender because you still don't have an actual star. And from what I can tell, your young guys are unlikely to develop into like top 20 players, even if they may be useful. Like, I don't see IQ or Obi Toppin or, RJ developing into like all-star caliber dudes. Maybe they will. That would be nice. But they can add a bunch of talent and be good if that's what they want to do. Like,
I don't want
they
that.
They can be good.
Yeah. I don't want respectability. I don't care about respectability. It's baked into trying to win a chip. So I don't see Colin Sexton as a part of that. I don't see any of these free agents this year. Kawhi, it's really sad that he had surgery again. He's breaking down, man. Have we, like, if Kawhi does his Grim Reaper thing in LA and decides to leave, like, do you want him? Yes, right?
Yes, but I don't think he leaves LA. All of his machinations seem to be to get him to LA so he could live in San Diego. So I don't see him saying, actually, I want to live in New Jersey. I think it's like his end game was going back there and then re-signing for an even larger contract.
I think so. I think he's at a point in his career. I don't think he even meant to be a Grim Reaper. I just think he just made the right decisions every step of the way. And I agree with you. I think LA is where he always wanted to be, and he's there. So he re-signs, and that team would have won it all if he was at 60%.
So here's a question. Imagine this Knicks team. Lonzo, Sexton, RJ, Randall, and then Nerlens and Mitch.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's
awesome.
that's a very possible team that they could have.
Yeah.
In fact, you could say that's likely going to be their team next year.
Come on. No way. I just don't think Lonzo is going to escape New Orleans. I just don't. I'll be excited not shocked if he does, but Sexton, he's a good Jordan Clarkson type dude. You need one of those guys, and the Knicks proved it in the playoffs. However, we know how a commodity like a scorer is, you need one. Tobias has to score points, man. If he doesn't score points, you're going to lose against the Hawks.
That was his only job.
Yeah, and he didn't do it, and that's fine. Like people,
It happens.
yeah, the penalty kick doesn't go in sometimes, and Tobias Harris is still had an awesome season, but he's the reason why they lost, right? Because he didn't do what he was supposed to do, and
I mean, look, I macro level blame Doc 100%.
Yeah.
But if we're going to look at the players, and well, Tobias Harris has a job. It is to score points with relative efficiency. It's not to rebound. It's not to play defense. It's not to pass. It's not to do anything except for score some points.
Yeah.
And he was terrible at it. I think his true shooting percentage over the last 3 games was something like 43%. I mean, he was a disaster.
If Devin Booker doesn't score 30 points, the Suns probably aren't going to have an easy time. And
No, because he doesn't have any other function.
that's it. He's the valve. And when he does score 30 points, we're like, is he a top 10 player? I'm like, no, that's his one job. And he's good at his job.
And he's good at it. And
I
Tobias
love
is
him.
generally pretty good at it. He's not Devin Booker, who's very good at it.
Yeah, Booker's awesome, but you need him to score. And, R.J. Barrett needs to score 18 points because he doesn't do anything else.
He can pass a little bit, though.
He's fine. He's a defensive rebounder. I like R.J. Barrett. Whatever. He was not a miss in the draft at all.
How would you feel about the Knicks keeping up with Thibs' love of old heads? What about the Knicks going and finally getting Kyle Lowry after all these years? Bring that wagon home.
I cannot be mad at someone with that silhouette, man. If he walks into the Garden looking like that, I'd be like, you're a Knicks all-time great, man. To the rafters with you. But Lowry would be dumb to come to the Knicks, man. He's going to be an add-on to a great team. I wouldn't be mad because he's fun. But no more veterans. I just don't think that the Knicks are within striking distance of relevancy. They need to keep on planting seeds and seeing if they can get like a Devin Booker or Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons because they don't have any of those guys.
If I'm a Knicks fan, I'm Lonzo, Sexton, R.J. Randall, Nerlens, or Mitch. I'm pretty happy with that team.
I'd be happy just Lonzo, and I'd be ecstatic. That's not going to win. That's not going to beat the Sixers or the Bucks, but it could give them problems. I love that team. That's a fun team.
You could win a first round series against somebody. You could be back to being the 4 or 5 seed, which I think is really what they're looking at because
that takes Boston, that takes Indiana, that takes Miami.
Right. I'm saying there's a good chance that the Knicks are better next year than they were this year, but have a worse seed just because if the Hawks are healthier, if Boston plays better, if Miami plays better. You still have Philly, you still have Milwaukee, you still have Brooklyn.
Jesus. Yeah.
I just mean there are enough teams that are going to be better than you, even if you add Lonzo Ball. But
just show up and see what happens.
I kind of like that team. So do you want to talk about your man Stephen A. Smith, who is a legend, but he may have made a miscue?
Did he besmirch my peoples?
You tell me.
So, no sin bin. Just no to the sin bin. But we're going to talk some baseball. Shohei Ohtani is maybe having the coolest season of all time. As everyone knows.
I don't know. So can you tell me why he's having this cool season?
He's leading the league in home runs. He might be one of the best hitters in the league. He's also the best pitcher in the league. So he's doing both. Babe Ruth did this back when Obi Toppin was a young man, so it kind of doesn't even count. We've never even seen a player like Shohei, and this was his promise. He got hurt. He was kind of like scuffling around for a second, and this year he went nuclear. He is LeBron James. Very handsome, tall Japanese guy, young, doesn't speak English or doesn't care to speak English, quiet, turned down the Yankees and Dodgers because he wanted to play in a small market, so he went to the Anaheim Angels, the LA Angels, which is kind of a sleepy small market team, even though it has an LA moniker like the Brooklyn Nets. And Stephen A. Smith got on his case. Well, Stephen A. Smith was doing the WWF thing. It's the All-Star week. Shohei's going to be the starting pitcher and in the home run derby. And Stephen A. Smith gets on his platform and says, a player who doesn't know how to speak English is never going to be the face of baseball, no sin bin, because he cannot communicate to fans and fans cannot connect with him. And people came out of the woodwork to hammer Stephen A. I think Stephen A. is wrong. You know, people brought up Ichiro. Ichiro pretended not to speak English. Manny Ramirez pretended not to speak English hilariously. But there's a precedence for this in baseball. Like Brian Cashman on the Yankees told some of his players, like El Duque, to learn how to speak English. And you've been in this country long enough. Start speaking English, which is a foul idea, I think. I think we've progressed. I love Brian Cashman. But we're in a different time and place. And what Stephen A. Smith said sounded extremely outdated and extremely ignorant. And he got hammered for it. Jeff Passan, who is another ESPN correspondent, kind of like came through and wrecked him. He was like, we're not going to do this ignorance thing. Like Shohei Ohtani came over from Japan and gave up his life. He is awesome. We love him. He's living the American dream. We don't barter in ignorance here, which was like what Stephen A. had coming to him. And Stephen A. wrote an apology, which I thought was sufficient. It's tough, though. Like, to me as an Asian American guy, and I'm Taiwanese, I'm not Japanese, and Asia's a huge country, and I can't speak for people who come from Korea or Malaysia or even China proper. But I think that it was something that brought up a lot of other questions that I don't think are urgent, but have been under the surface for a long time, like affirmative action and the whole Harvard lawsuit, and who suffers in ignorance.
You know, I understand that Stephen A. Smith, his job requires him to just reel off takes. Some of them going to be hotter than others. You know, and he may not think things through all the time. He's just there to opine. Is he wrong in a theoretical sense that having a superstar who doesn't speak English in a sport in America might be an impediment to their marketability? Maybe.
He has. I went on Twitter with this. Like, we know where he's coming from. It's the echo of Shohei not wanting the big market. So Stephen A. went for the jugular there. He has a point. Like, I'm not going to clutch my pearls and say, like, I don't understand what he means. I do think he's wrong because Shohei is the most popular player in the league.
This is where I was going with that, right?
Yeah.
Is that theoretically saying a guy who can't speak English that well is going to be tough for America to embrace because they can't really communicate with him. He's not going to be great in interviews. He's not going to be great in commercials, all this stuff. We're also talking about fucking baseball that no one cares about. No one cares about.
Come on, man. There's Pokemon. There's Magic cards. People are buying, like, there's still, like, Beanie Baby collectors out there, and they're watching the baseball All-Star game.
Right. I am saying, though, that, like, having this guy who is this unique and this fantastic, it doesn't matter if he's Japanese or not.
It kind of makes
like,
him cooler.
He can, and I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying it makes him like, oh, there's this Japanese guy who does all these things. He's this good.
Yeah.
This guy's incredible. He's a phenom.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't necessarily, like, it could make him more marketable. But my point was that, like, he's not wrong in a vacuum that Dirk Nowitzki may have been a bigger star if he was a white guy from Boston than he was as a white guy from Germany. Like,
hard to tell. Yeah, maybe so.
You know, I just mean, then he would have been Larry Bird, right? I mean, from French Lick. But that point, right? He would have been Larry Bird.
But Dirk is a very lovable, like, kind of fluid pop star, right? Where Larry Bird was kind of acerbic.
Yes. I just mean the idea of having a person who's able to communicate. I get it theoretically. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying theoretically. But in this case, like, what he's doing is, of course he should be the face of baseball. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, what he's doing is outrageous.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Lin was on the cover of Sports Illustrated twice and the cover of Time magazine once for something he did in a window of 3 weeks. I think as a internet fan base, we understand how to, like, get carried away with stuff. And Stephen A. Smith is, remember, he's like a generation of, like, the Ken Griffeys, and who also shunned the spotlight by going to Seattle. But I know what Stephen A means, and it's a tough place to be because I felt like he was wrong, and he was wrong about a very personal, touchy thing. I mean, touchy is not giving it credit. He was wrong about a fundamentally human thing, I think. But also,
yes, I think that makes sense. My point was just that, like, I think where he's starting from is something that you can say, okay, I get what your point is.
Yeah.
It's just about linguistics. But the problem here is that it gets into race. It gets into this being an Asian guy. It gets into a sport that is also talked about, like Latino players. Are they a problem? Are they too like?
Yeah.
He opened a can of worms that wasn't just about like, hey, this guy needs a translator, so it's going to be tough for him to be popular because he can't do interviews that people will understand.
I mean,
he took it to a different level.
I agree, and my frustration here in New York was like, I liked a lot of Andrew Yang's ideas. Just, in the beginning, I thought he had ideas that were going to make me and our neighbors' lives better. But he was Asian, and I just wished he wasn't Asian. I just wish he was like a generic, whatever you think a politician in your mind should look like. I just wish it was a blind thing. And nothing is blind. Everything is about the way you look and race. And this is just what makes us human. And the Shohei thing is interesting because, to your point, we always I find we always argue about language when we're arguing about other things, like this wasn't said correctly, or someone said the wrong thing in the wrong video game circle chat. Myers Leonard said the wrong word, and that's what kind of did him in, not the politics he's supported for a decade. And this is interesting because it's language in the most literal sense. Stephen A was like, he does not know how to speak our language, which is like xenophobic and annoying. Yeah. But like, I like Stephen A so much, and he was just talking about marketing, and it kind of unraveled in his hands so quickly that he realized he had made a grievous error.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, yeah. I get the base root of it being a discussion about marketing that spirals into stuff that is offensive, and is jingoistic, xenophobic, etc. Like, he fucked up.
Yeah.
But I understand, like, the idea, the kernel there of, like, well, guys are less marketable if they're not from here. I get it, but also it wasn't like Ichiro wasn't a phenomenon. It wasn't like Fernando Valenzuela wasn't popular. People love guys who are from other places. There is no border, like, limitation on stars. Like Manny Ramirez, he's from Washington Heights, but
and
Dominican.
He pretended not to speak English.
Right, exactly.
I
but Pedro Martinez. I just mean there is a huge array of superstars.
Yao Ming.
Yeah, who were not like Native Americans, and it was fine. Look at Steve Nash. Came from the backwoods of South Africa and Canada, and came to America and became a 2-time MVP.
But we're also like coastal elite jerks, right? And maybe Stephen A was talking to somebody who isn't where we're from, and he's, our best conversations are the ones where we can have them, and I think we get more done when we can talk about things. And people slamming on Stephen A, I was just like, well, you're doing what ESPN tells him to do. It's the elbow from the top. Like, it's a WWF move. It's like a body slam. And I just think we feed into this way of talking about a player like Ben Simmons in these awful, awful terms. And then it kind of reverberates in the language back to us. And we're like, no, Stephen A, you can't say that. And I'm like, man, like, look what happened to the English penalty kick players. Like, what happened there is just like appalling to society, I think. But then the response is corrective. And I don't know. Like, Asian Americans have a different experience than other Asian Americans, right? Like I said, I'm Taiwanese, and I'm not Japanese, and I'm not Indian. But like, I thought there was a really interesting discussion there. But quickly got drowned out by outrage, and that's fair. I mean, he said the wrong thing. But I think there's a really interesting discussion to be had there, and we're having it now.
Booyaka. Sorry, just now I'm thinking about that time. Not because of what you said, but because I said booyaka.
Ali G, man. Strange artist.
When I opened up the fridge
Oh.
and saw hummus
Booyah.
at my parents' house and audibly said booyah. It's the only time I've said booyah ever.
You've never seen the Booyah Tribe back in the day?
Well, sure, in describing the booyah tribe, but I always say B.O.O.Y.A.H. That's how you say booyah tribe.
True.
And it might also be T.R.I.B. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But the only time I've used it as an exclamation was swinging open the door of the fridge at my parents' house. And there it was, hummus.
Yeah,
And I
because
said, booyah.
there's a brand of hummus named something wacky. I don't know if it's Booyah, but no, it's Tribe. It's Tribe hummus, right?
Well, that was not the brand, but I was about to make the same connection, Tribe hummus. So I said, booyah, and it was like, Tribe hummus.
It's pretty good hummus. Does it come out of the same, like, faucet that all the other hummuses come out of? The hummus faucet?
Yeah, I'd feel like, all right, Bernie. All right, move along. All right, Sabra, get over here.
Yeah.
Ithaca hummus, you up next. Come on.
That Rochester RX hummus.
That's the best shit out there.
So listen, everyone's going to be on that RX hummus in 10 years when there's nowhere to have a hummus in New York City.
We're all up in Rochester listening to RX, and we're at the hummus faucet glugging away.
Do we have time to drag Team USA and Jason Tatum and Damian Lillard losing 2 games in a row?
I think you just did.
Cookies.
Cookies!
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.